Emergency evacuation. Look for the signs if you have to go out. And please remember, we have a smoke-free school district, no smoking anywhere on any campus or in this building. Okay, we're going next to the board consent agenda. 1 through 9. Okay, board consent agenda. A motion, please, to approve items C1 through C9. Mr. Nix, a second. Mr. Trent, any discussion on anything? No discussion. All in favor of consenting? It's unanimous. Thank you. Communications and announcements, and that's you, Dr.
Yes,
Cheney.
thank you, President Hayes. We begin communications and announcements with a special recognition this evening. One of our high school students who recently earned the rank of Eagle Scout, which is the highest rank attainable in the Scouts. That is a student who just gave the Pledge of Allegiance, Jake Esposito. Welcome, Jake. I've invited Mr. Hogan to introduce Jake. So, Mr. Hogan.
Good evening. Tonight, it's my pleasure to recognize one of our students at Bellport High School, Jake Esposito, on achieving the rank of Eagle Scout this past November. I would like to call Jake up to the podium. Jake first entered scouting in May of 2014 and moved through the ranks of Tenderfoot, Second Class, First Class, Star, Life, and finally Eagle Scout. During that time, he performed countless hours of community service and obtained 30 merit badges. In addition, he held numerous leadership positions, including a scribe, assistant patrol leader, quartermaster, and Eagle Scout team project leader. These efforts and experiences have supported Jake's mental and physical development and becoming a well-rounded individual and valued member of our school and community. Jake's culminating Eagle Scout project team, under his supervision, erected a Purple Martin colony at Squassix Landing in Brookhaven. His goal was to create a project that served both his community and the environment. Jake contacted a neighbor, an environmentalist, who introduced him to the Purple Martin, a bird similar to a swallow. They are very friendly to people and a bird that requires human landlords for reproduction, as they will not build nests in the wild. The Brookhaven community has been trying to get the Purple Martin back in the area, and Jake's project did just that. After months of researching these amazing birds, Jake learned about their nesting habits, how to attract them, who their predators are, nesting placement, management of the colony, their migration, food source, and their need for human intervention. In short, Jake became very passionate about these birds and their well-being. As a result of Jake's work, there have been 2 articles written about his Eagle Scout project in the Brookhaven Village Association newsletter, The Fireplace. Jake is very thankful to all of the Scouts and adult volunteers of Troop 47, as well as those outside of Troop 47 who he has encountered on his journey. Because of their unselfish dedication to the scouting program and Jake's passion for scouting, he was able to achieve the rank of Eagle Scout. Jake will continue his scouting journey by helping other Scouts achieve the Honorable Eagle rank. We congratulate Jake on this remarkable achievement.
Good.
Congratulations again, Jake, and mom and dad as well. I read somewhere that only 4% of scouts attain their Eagle Scout, so congratulations. That's pretty impressive. Moving on with communications and announcements, we have been notified that the State Education Department's technical review has begun on the window replacement and new security vestibule over at Kramer Street Elementary School. Now that the process has begun, we are hopeful that the review process could be completed in the next 12 to 14 weeks. Seems like a long time as it is, and that the project could begin sometime early spring. So we're looking forward to that. In light of recent amendments to education law concerning contracts for school resource officers, we are in the process of making revisions to the proposed agreement between the district and the Suffolk County Police Department for SRO services. A draft copy of the proposed SRO Memorandum of Understanding is posted on our website for the community's review. Any community member wishing to make suggestions to the proposed MOU need to send them to the district clerk no later than January 29th, 2020. The district clerk's email address, the MOU, and all pertinent information are posted on the slider on the district's main webpage. That's all I have to announce, President Hayes.
Okay. Trustee and advisory committee reports. Yes, well, I don't know, does anybody have any?
I do.
Okay.
I don't know if you're gonna go in order, how do you want to do this?
Well, Carly was looking first.
I was waiting for you to go in order, that's why I asked.
I just have a few things to say. I'm certainly impressed with the community that everyone really came together during the holiday season to donate for the food drive run by Student Council. You know, we had one in November for Thanksgiving, and we continued throughout December for those in need during the holiday season. And we just wanted to reiterate that it is extremely important to continue to donate even after the holidays. So Student Council will be hosting a winter coat drive, and we'll have boxes all around the high school. So we just want to make sure that everyone keeps that giving spirit. And I also wanted to note that Belport's Got Talent was changed, the date. It's been postponed from this Friday to March 20th due to conflicts with a lot of the sports games and teams. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I just want to wish everyone a happy new year, and remind everyone that Belport Middle School's Frozen Junior will be January 17th and 18th, 7 p.m. on both evenings and 2 o'clock on Saturday. So I'm hoping that a lot comes out.
So I got a couple quick things. The first thing was something that came up tonight. Before I came, I was at the varsity basketball game, and I had read an article in the sporting goods business, so I read a lot of trade magazines, and I was talking to the athletic director about it, and he was familiar with it. I guess the National High School Sporting Goods Sports Association has a program, and they're selling. It's a fee to sell cameras into courts and fields so that you can live stream your athletic events and whatnot. And there's a cost associated with it, et cetera, et cetera. But it got me thinking something that's always been on my mind, and I don't think we ever really go far enough. We have to have a club or a class that is photography, videography. I know we have VHS TV. I would wonder if we would make the recommendation and just a thought. Why aren't some of our clubs or some of our classes doing this? I don't know if it would be extra credit, it would be a project. But, I mean, it's really not great extraordinary technology to take an iPhone or an iPad and mount it somewhere in a gym or on a field and live stream an athletic event or a concert or the play or something like that. And it goes to an overall picture to me as we operate the district and things that go on, why we're not utilizing students for some of the day-to-day things that may have a cost associated with it, whether it's taking the board's picture for the calendar, whether maybe the photography class would take pictures and make them available to the athletes and the musicians and actors in our extracurricular activities. So I'd love to see something like that explored more with our high school and even middle school students if they have those electives. So that was just something that kind of came up today while I was at the basketball game. The other piece was last night I had a legislative committee meeting for the Nassau Suffolk School Board Association. A couple things that came out of that. The purpose of the meeting was just to review the legislative priorities on both the federal and state level for the Nassau Suffolk School Board Association in conjunction with the New York State School Board Association. So during the meeting, there's a couple of key things just that came up. Just to sidetrack from the legislative agenda, we do have a couple local people who have shifted. Fred Langstaff, who is a board member at Eastern Suffolk BOCES. I don't think he's on the Sable board anymore, but was for many years and was our area director for New York State School Board Association, is now the president of the New York State School Board Association. Known Fred a long time. He's a wonderful resource and advocate for education. When you become president, you get to design your own pin. So we had him, so I brought a pin for everybody. If you want one, I have him here. And his goal on his pin is be the champion for every child. So you'll see when you go to some of the workshops and stuff, you'll see people wearing them. So now you have yours if you want it. In addition, since Fred was our area director and is now the president, we have a new area director. Her name is Catherine Romano. She's also a board member Eastern Suffolk BOCES. She's a former board member at the Islip School District. And I believe she's heavily involved with the New York State PTA as well. And coincidentally, her daughter is our new music teacher at Frank P. Long. So, but Catherine, again, I've known Catherine for a number of years. I've been on many lobby trips to Albany with her. She's an incredible resource in education for what's happening. So those are some of the local faces that are available to us as a resource. And if you head to a workshop or something, you'll see them and hear them, and you'll probably get communications from them as well. In regards to the legislative agenda for the Nassau Suffolk School Board, most of it, and when it's updated, which was what last night's meeting was, it'll be distributed to everybody so you understand what's going on. Some of the key topics discussed last night specifically was the new bail reform law and how it's impacting our communities, and specifically there were some points brought up, and the school board, Nassau Suffolk School Board, decided to take a position and add it as a legislative priority for this coming year, specifically as it relates to crimes or any crime committed on a school. And there was one of the members had a list of some, specifically somewhere upstate recently within the last month, somebody was arrested with a firearm on school grounds. That person was out on bail that day. So there are some things like that do have an impact. The rest of it is pretty much standard. It's a lot of the same legislative priorities and how it affects financing and things like that. But we did talk a lot, and we should, as we get closer to budget season, it's going to be important for everybody to understand that it is anticipated that this is going to be a very ugly budget year coming from Albany for a lot of different reasons. There's deficits and everything else. So so there's some legitimate concern as to what state aid is going to look like in the coming year. So it's something to pay attention as that goes on. So, and that's it. So when I have more information on that stuff, so we'll finalize, I'll distribute it to the board.
Let me just tack on to what you said, because it's not directly a point,
Sure.
but it might be a little bit. There's a meeting Saturday morning
Yes.
and I know you're going, and Ms. Costa's going, and invitations have gone out to different.
Is that the Longwood one or the BOCES?
No,
BOCES.
it's the advocacy BOCES.
And it's, from what I understand from the brochure, it's to get an idea about how to best present your district in the eyes of the community. And it's based upon data collection that they'll be talking about. So I am looking around the table to see if there's any trustee that might want to attend Saturday morning.
Is it this Saturday?
This
It's this
Saturday.
It is this Saturday. Maybe.
Okay. Okay.
best I can tell you, maybe.
I think that we have to let either Sarah or Christine know by tomorrow.
If I don't, I mean, I can get in through the Nassau Suffolk School Board if I have to, because that's on one of their, that was on the list last night, but I'll let you know
Just
if I
put them
can.
on.
They're
They're not gonna,
not gonna kick me out.
All right. And you can put me on too. I was planning to go. I thought I would just go to get an overview of what's
no,
gonna
it's
happen.
a nice one. It's
Um,
different than the Longwood one as well.
So, yeah.
I might.
Anybody else? It's, I think
Yeah,
8:30
8:30
is
And
registration,
it's up here in
9
Holbrook,
o'clock.
right?
It's Sequoia now. Yeah, it's not, it's at the Sequoia
You
School.
go up Waverly,
Yeah.
Oh, it's, okay.
Yeah, it's not the old site.
and at 9 o'clock, I think the programming starts. It's 8:30 to 9 registration and things like that.
Do you, I do have the bullets on the main points for the legislative. Do you want me to read that off now, or do you want to wait until it's official? What do you want?
If they're not official yet.
They're
maybe-
official, but they're just not printed. I can wait, it doesn't matter.
Maybe if they're printed somewhere, we could have them in the board updates.
Yeah, sure.
for-
Hey, I'll get the 2021 then, that's fine.
Okay. Mr. Nix.
All right, Happy New Year, happy to be, hopefully it'll be a nice, positive, healthy 2020. Not much to report, as I know, it's been the holidays, but I'm looking forward to attending the Kramer Street PTA meeting tomorrow night. And yes, oh, and actually, something jogged my memory when Mr. Pacini was talking about filming the sporting events and the plays and stuff. When I was a student here, we had a club called MSG Varsity that I was on, and we did exactly that. We would interview the coaches and we
Oh,
would film
yeah.
the
It was
football
a
games.
club, or was
Yeah.
it
So I'm
connected
curious,
to, was it connected to Cablevision, the old MSG?
I believe so,
Because
yeah.
that's defunct now, but there
I know,
should
but
be
I'm
something
curious
like
if there's
that.
something like that. Some of the art teachers might know, because I remember getting through it with.
I mean, I know we have photography
I
classes.
know.
Well,
Yeah.
there's also, in the language arts program at the high school, and Mr. Hogan is conveniently in the audience, so I can call on him for help here. But as part of the language arts program, there's a class where they've been doing like a video
Okay.
of, it says, I have a story too, or something like that, of individual students, you know, where they're doing the video on an iPhone, and,
So I think you're referencing the BHS TV, our broadcast journalism
Oh, yeah.
class.
okay.
Which is lovely.
So that might be, you know, another resource
Somehow to
to
connect
talk,
that,
to
yeah.
connect those dots to see if something could be
Yeah.
made from it.
So, yeah. Other than that, I'm looking forward to scheduling some tours with some of
Yes, I
the
got
elementary
those out.
schools. Trying to get to every school this year to do some tours, read to students, not the high school students, I won't read to them. But I'll read. For Kritz and Brookhaven, I looking to schedule that. So it'll be a good year, hopefully, very productive.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Boy, it's been quite a year already. There's a lot happening. I did want to mention, as liaison to the middle school, all the things that are happening, but thank you very much. Mr. Rudis, you beat me to the punch there. So there will be things happening in and around, and I am looking forward to a promising 2019 school board year. Thank you.
I don't have anything to report.
Nothing to add?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Well, I'm going back because there's something that was added to the agenda that I didn't see when I did the consent motion. But we need a motion to consent to approve C11. And this was a student suspension appeal. So we're
C11?
approving the superintendent's
You have
recommendation.
to refresh your
Yes,
page.
You need to refresh because it was added.
Refresh.
Yeah, that's, you might not see, if
Oh,
you
is
see
that
only
circle
C10,
up there?
you need to refresh.
Ah, well, it took me completely out of where we belong.
Yeah, you have to start over.
Yeah. No, there we go, okay. So, C11, and the little caption is student
Oh, sorry.
suspension appeal. So, this would be, consent to the superintendent's recommendation, is that correct?
Yes, it's, yeah.
Okay. I need a motion to consent Mr. Nix, Ms. Aruda. All in favor of consenting to the superintendent's recommendation, raise your hand. There's 4 in favor. Oh, I didn't ask for discussion before we vote, but I don't think we need it. So 4 in favor, any against? We have 1 against. Is there an abstention?
Abstain.
And 1 abstention. Did you get that, Christine? 4 in favor,
Yes.
1 not in favor, and 1 abstention. Okay, so now we're back on track. Guide to board meetings. This is where we have the opportunity for a member of the public to speak to us. There's a 3-minute limit, and there's certain topics that cannot be addressed. We don't talk about individual students or teachers or other staff members, but issues only. And, oh, it's a non-agenda item, I'm being corrected, so that will, I'm sorry, the person who put their card in will call you up after we've concluded the rest of the agenda items. I'm sorry about that. But you can remember what I said about the guide to board meetings and the 3 minutes, and you don't talk about individuals. Okay. So now we're on items for discussion, and F1.
That's right. First item for discussion and action is the district's school-based planning and shared decision-making plan. This plan was initially developed back in February of 1994 as a result of New York State requirement aimed at improving the educational performance of all students in the school, regardless of such factors such as socioeconomic status, race, sex, language background, or disability. Earlier this school year, the board's advisory committee for strategic planning reviewed the plan and made revisions to better reflect the building level shared decision-making teams and the district level board advisory committee structure. The revised plan calls for greater participation on the building level shared decision-making teams and puts a communication network in place between building teams and the board's advisory committees, thereby facilitating communication with the board, administration, faculty, staff, parents, and the community. I offer this plan for the board's discussion and action.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or discussions about the shared decision-making plan that is shown here? I have a comment.
Okay.
And that is, over the 6 months that I've been on this board, I am glad to see that there is getting a more obvious structure with regard to the shared decision-making and getting feedback also from the different buildings about the shared decision-making meetings that they've been having, so that there's been more, it appears to me anyway, more of a focus and a recognition of how important this can be to involve different segments of the community in what we're doing as a district. So I'm very glad to see this being put kind of all in one place under one umbrella, so that we know exactly where to look if we've got questions about how shared decision-making is going to be taking place.
I agree with that.
Oh, good, an agreement. Yes.
I sit on the strategic planning committee, and I am very thankful that that everyone on the committee's voices were heard, all the little edits that everyone had, and I think that this is a great step forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So the action that you need.
You need a motion to approve.
Okay, that's easy. A motion to approve the shared decision-making plan. Mr. Nix and second, Mr. Trent. Any discussion or questions? No? All in favor? That's unanimous. Right?
Okay, the next item for discussion is all class and grade level field trips. I actually requested this item to be placed on the agenda. I requested this of the president so that the board may have a discussion and give administration some guidance regarding field trips when they are planned for an entire grade level. Not necessarily classroom at the elementary level, but really secondary and the entire grade level. We've had much discussion this school year regarding field trips, including trips in relationship to the curriculum, cost and affordability of the trip, what does all class and all grade level mean in terms of how many of the kids that the enrollment is and how many goes means the whole class. What does instruction look like for those students that don't attend the trip? It's that time of year when we begin receiving such requests, and I would simply like to know the board's view on the topic. While I do not expect any decisions this evening, and perhaps a committee needs to be assembled to examine the issue further, I would like some initial guidance, because as I said, these trips are coming in. I'd also like to discuss the previously approved 8th grade trip to Philadelphia. We had an initial goal of 275 students participating. We currently have about 94 students signed up, filling 2 buses, needing an additional 43 students to fill that third bus. I'm interested in the board's view on the trip running with about 2/3 of the kids not going. And I offer these 2 items, and actually one big item for the board's discussion.
Let's break that into 2 parts.
Okay.
And in my view, the 8th grade trip, we ought to be able to discuss quickly and get some resolution on that, and then go over to the different types of trips as you outline them. Because I think that might be a more lengthy discussion. Is that all right with
works for me.
everybody? Okay. With regard to the 8th grade trip, you just heard that the enrollment is smaller than had been anticipated. I think that happens a lot of times the first time that you do something, and it can take a year or 2 to see whether or not this is the type of program that we want to be running. So my comment here is I think that if it is possible to do the trip with 2 buses and the requisite number of chaperones and the students who've enrolled, I would like to go ahead and see it done. And if there's also a way through the vendor to say, can we add on a 3rd bus if we do get more enrollment over the last little while?
So we
keep that
extended the deadline, and we're hopeful we're going to get more. Right now, there's 3 kids sitting on 1 bus, right? So 1 bus isn't running with 3 kids. So we're hopeful that we will be able to improve that free number, and whether it's 43, I don't know. I mean, if it's somewhat better, I think that you run it anyway, you figure it out. Or you say the last 3 that we're in, because we've extended them like up times, are out. Dr. Colson's confident that we will get additional kids.
That's just 94 students, you're not counting your chaperones.
No, the seats are accounted for on the bus for the chaperones.
So I agree the trip should move forward, and if we don't fill up the next bus, we should certainly, I don't want to see anybody that, whether they sign up late or not, we extend it and they say they want to go, I think they should go and we should figure it out. Maybe it's a smaller bus, maybe we put chaperones in cars or something like that. I certainly think that we should go, and I think, I tend to think that we will get more involved, specifically because I believe the first payment was like December little tough when you get
Yeah,
kids.
you're right.
You know, it's a tough time of year to have extra money and things like that. So I think that's one thing. But I'm also under the impression if you build it, they'll come, right? So let's make it a great trip so that next year we have 275 kids or whatever it is. So I don't think anything should derail our efforts to move forward with the trip.
I completely agree.
I totally agree with what was just said. I think this trip is, I think the kids are looking forward to it. I think Philadelphia is a great place to visit.
Great.
And how much is this trip, by the way?
$375. $375.
$375. And how many kids do we need?
Well, no, if we fill the bus, it's still 375. And I believe even if we, it's all in buses, right? So even if 2 buses go, it's still 375, because it's still on the bus. It's if we half fill the 3rd bus, then there might be a change in price.
But I think we should discuss it at that point, right? If it's something the district
Whether
can
we wanna-
absorb.
Right,
Right.
absorb it.
Because I don't want to see anybody be told they can't go now. Because everything that went on with why the chip was changed and everything else. Kids want to go, they deserve to go, they should go.
Could you just describe what the outreach is to the students?
Oh, there's been a couple of meetings, and there's been weekly emails going home and announcements at school. So
Okay.
every Friday, something goes home.
Yeah.
to
Okay.
remind. Mr. Rudy, you're, right, so they're coming home.
They are. I don't know I do know that it's on the daily announcements. I don't know if the 8th graders themselves had an assembly, possibly with that presentation that was given from CTA to hype up the trip a bit. I know the parents were, but there was also a change, so the meeting, it could have been a little bit touchy. You have a different individual presenting something. So there were definitely some pushback from parents, without a shadow of a doubt, and some questions, and understandably so. But like you said, piggybacking off of that first year, I happen to love Philadelphia. I go every single year with my students. My son is signed up to go on this particular trip. So I'm hoping for a great turnout. I know that one of the issues the parents were concerned about the particular hotel, but regardless, no matter where you read reviews on hotels, you're going to have positive, negative. I think it's going to be a great trip for the kids. So
One of the things on that hotel, though, just what I've seen and heard and read, and I think it was, and I may have missed something, and I'll check out the hotel maybe, but in the paperwork, from what I understand, there was a comment about how there would be 4 security guards provided at the hotel. And I think that gave people the impression that the hotel was not in a safe area, when I think in actuality, that was a standard operating procedure for this tour company.
correct.
With students.
Correct.
So I think there was a understanding of why.
And that was clarified at
Yeah,
the meeting.
yeah.
They did clarify that at the meeting as to that. I don't know, when they said security guards, it was no different than a chaperone being on standby. Obviously, you're paying for a company to take care of this, so there does need to be a level of security.
Having
on
an
their part.
adult in the hall to make sure they're not leaving their rooms after.
Yeah,
After they're
and that's
supposed to
great,
be
because
in.
the chaperone's probably gonna fall asleep at some point, so somebody who's working the night shift.
Right.
When you think about it, you wonder why it wasn't in place before. It's a great idea, so.
Is there any way we can put this out on our social media pages too? That the deadline's extended
Yeah, I
and all that?
think I think we can do that.
I mean, if we hit even 2 people with that, it'd be good.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, planning trips for as many years as I have, you're always going to have people that sign up last minute, a week, 2 weeks, a month after the deadline. But again, just like you said, it can't fall short, because then you're not going to get that additional bus filled. And there's a lot of seats that we do need to fill in that bus, so I think blasting it out there and possibly doing an assembly so that the children do see what we were able to see and some of the things that they would see. May not, more maybe in a social studies class, as opposed to doing an assembly, spending, a little bit of time working on that, so the children are excited about it as well.
Any more comments here?
Yeah, I have a question. Dr. Johnny, is there a vetting process for chaperones that aren't district employees?
that aren't. We haven't gotten involved in that yet, and we haven't determined that we need to do that yet. But we did, and I think we might have said at the meeting we discussed it, that may be a possibility that we have to look at parent chaperones. So at that point.
Like just in general, no. I didn't see one in policy 8460.
No, I do not believe there is anything in board policy with regard to that.
Okay. And just to be clear, if we do get more children enrolled and it's not enough to fill 3 buses, we could pull a few off of the 2 heavy buses and scatter them into the 3rd and be a little more comfortable riding, and then accommodate everybody, right?
I'm walking away with the direction of figure it out.
Okay. All right, so do you need anything else from us with
No,
regard
not
to
with
the
regard to
8th
eighth
grade?
grade.
Okay. So now let's go to the policy that's been given to us for our review, and also your verbal comments about the different types of trips, whether they are like day trips for an individual classroom and all of that. I for one, would like to see these issues dealt with in a separate policy or separate section of a policy. It's not clear to me that it's out there as cleanly as it could be. It might be easier to read and understand if it's done separately. Whether you've got, say, Mrs. Brown's 3rd grade class is going to the Postmora Society or something like that. Then what policy would that come under? Because that's very different for a day trip where you're leaving at 7 in the morning and coming back at 7 at night, going up to Westchester County to, you had mentioned the Presidential Library. I think that's in Westchester County.
It's in Hyde Park.
Hyde Park. So that ought to be handled differently, I would think. I think there
No,
are different
agreed,
issues.
agreed,
Okay.
and class trips, at the elementary level, it's not an issue. When I say class, I mean, the whole grade level.
The entire
class.
grade, yeah.
When we're talking about money and affordability and, what constitutes everybody going. I mean, I've heard districts that actually have a percentage on it. If you don't hit 80%, it doesn't happen. I think that's a little tough. I'm not suggesting that, but that's the kind of guidance I'm looking at. For example, I know that we'll be getting the senior trip sometime soon. They're guesstimating or looking at 50 to 100 students going. We have 310 youngsters in the building at the 12th grade level. I mean, if I bring an overnight field trip to the board for 50 kids, I don't want the board saying to me, Dr. Cherny, what are you doing? So that's why I'm looking for that guidance.
Well, in that regard, like, what's the outreach there? Is it the student government that outreaching to get the seniors involved in that trip, or like what's the price? We would just need to know more.
Yeah, well, all of those things fall into play, right? Cost of trip. And I think we can all agree, as kids get older, Carly, I'll let you weigh in. They tend to not want to go. They're involved in other things.
There's
right?
too many other things.
Yeah,
Too many
there's just a
other
lot of things going on.
Right, okay.
But also, I think with regard to, particularly at the high school level, I think the intention is that it be student-driven. It's something that the students are interested in, and part of, it's not just the trip and what's learned from going on the trip, but all the planning that goes into it, and the record keeping, and how to do certain types of bookkeeping, and so it's a learning experience right there. I would like to see that itemized a little bit more so that we can keep the focus on education and how that's what we're getting at the high school level in particular. And You had your hand up?
Yeah, it's actually a little bit of a twofold. One, I'll first start talking about the financial portions of the trips. I definitely would like to see within the district across all grade levels, the ability to fundraise more for these trips. Going through, I know that I had requested all the field trips and the cost. One of the components that was left out on that was whether the trip was fundraised or not. In looking through that as well, I also looked at our arts and ed money and where that's being proportioned out. I think that's something that we could possibly discuss and figure out, and then look into why we're not using some outdoor ed money into the program. From what you said, we don't engage in the outdoor
Well,
ed.
it's not, so we're on the same page. The outdoor ed money's not there, you budget for it, right? So it's not like it's free money waiting to be taken. We would have to put a line on to be able to.
It might be something to have a discussion about, since we are talking about that and increasing our outdoor experiences for our students. And the second side of that, one of the things that you said about a committee, I would definitely love to see a committee being created for field trips, not only for the grade level field trips that you speak about, but across the board. The elementary field trips, they are easy, you're right, but I do think that they are, and especially going through that, and I did go through that with a fine-tooth comb, I think that they're lacking. I definitely think that our elementary students really can have more experiences. A lot of what we saw on there was, say, the field trip for the third graders to go to fourth grade for the orientation. Not really necessarily a field trip. That's something that just should be required. So I think we have some work to do just all across every grade level with field trips. So I personally would love to see a committee formed for field trips. I do know that it's a big undertaking, but I think it's something that we need here.
And some of that was talked about at the teaching and learning.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if, based on what you're saying, if there are other advisory committees that this should maybe be run through to see their input
Or
about
a
how we ought to
subcommittee
be.
from teaching and
Yeah,
learning.
that's
We could
what I-
definitely a
that's what I
subcommittee
would
from teaching and
recommend.
learning without a shadow of a doubt.
Because it's all an extension or
Of curriculum.
co-curricular.
Right. Chris?
So a couple of things on it, because I disagree a little bit with a couple of comments about the committee specifically. And I guess, but I do agree that some of our trips are lacking, right? Having kids going through the district, I can't remember what grade it was, like they go to Fire Island, they go to the Ho-Hum Beach. It's a beach day. Like we're not learning about sea creatures or anything over erosion or anything. They're just playing football on the beach and you go in the water up to your knees. I mean, to me, it's kind of a wasted day. So I think, and I look back when I was a kid and I think about some of the places I went. Like my family still won't go and be like, I don't understand why we don't go to Sagamore Hill, right? Teddy, what a great place. I learned a ton when I was there. Now on the flip side, last year, third grade went to the Vanderbilt Museum in Centerport. Great trip. I mean, it really was a lot of history there. But I guess what I'm getting at is like, I don't know that I want to see this dictated by a committee. I want this coming out of the grade level teachers. And I'd like to see, and in conjunction with the curriculum office and the directors, we should be developing, trips that expose kids to the uniqueness of Long Island specifically. There's a lot of great things to see here. And again, like I think of, when I went to Fire Island as a kid, we went to, the Sunken Forest. And there was a whole, we learned, I mean, we dragged and dredged for fish in the bay, and we learned about the ocean and all that different stuff. Some of our trips weren't having that. Like now, I've also gone to the aquarium. I think the aquarium's a really cool trip as well. It's a cool place, kids have been there, but it's really not that unique. It's expensive. A lot of kids have gone before. So that's, I guess, what I'm looking at, I mean, I didn't ever heard of any of our trips going to see the Montauk Lighthouse. Right. Do they?
They used to,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
we had to stop
for
that
as long
because
as,
of cost
yeah,
price.
but for as long as
For-
my kids have been in school, there's never been a trip through Crits the middle school of Frank P. Long.
Frank P. used to, I think they stopped maybe 5 years ago going to Montauk.
Longer than that.
It was,
My kid was
it
able.
could
Yeah,
be a
no, I'm
little bit
saying, like,
longer than that.
Yeah, it had to be. So,
But I know that they
so
did go
regardless
back.
of what it is, but there's some great places here that I don't think on Long Island that are within an hour's drive that we could be doing more and
Absolutely.
going to see.
Absolutely.
But I would want to hear from, you know, not necessarily, you know, an ad hoc committee from teaching and learning, but I'd like to hear from people in the buildings, the principals, the administrators, as to what we want to expose our children to.
Absolutely.
And that, I think, is what's really missing.
Would you sum that up and say that we'd like to also see a focus on what's available on Long Island?
Sure, so-
To it, and to expose our students to things that they may not see. There's a lot on Long Island that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, and you know, to that point, so maybe I can even reverse myself a little bit. Maybe a committee comes out and creates a catalog of opportunities and have teachers then go say, you know what, hey, listen, this'll fit into what I'm doing here, or so. Maybe that's the way to really do
What
it.
I think, and I'm sorry, the BOCES does have a catalog.
Yeah, I'm
There is a
sure.
catalog out there of all of various vendors, whether it's outdoor ed or vendors that are coming in. My vision of a committee would absolutely encompass the teachers and the buildings, putting out surveys, you know, kind of figuring out, we already know who's going where, but maybe putting out that wish list, what are some of the places, and really coming together. It doesn't need to just be a committee based upon our thoughts, that's clearly not what we want. We've done committees before where we've put out surveys and said, you know, what is an ideal trip, and then kind of coming from there. Like I said before, it's a big task to undertake, but I think that our students deserve to have those opportunities. At the elementary level, they're going on one field trip. And one of the things that I always thought to myself was, there was limited field trips at the elementary level, and then all of a sudden they got to 7th grade and they were going overnight. I'm like, whoa, that seems like a very big jump. And I'd like to increase those smaller, and so even some of the larger field trips that happen at the elementary level, and then move on to some of the tasks that you talked about for the grade level trips, which is definitely more challenging, because now you're planning for over 200 children or 300 children at certain points, and really be able to come together and work on some ideas to get information out, to fundraise, to bring down costs, so that it is open to more of our students and more of our grade levels.
So there is fundraising for each of these trips provided?
Not necessarily some, you know, if you want to call George and Parent fundraising.
I mean, like some of these trips, it's $10, right? If you go, you know,
Well,
so.
no, I obviously I didn't mean $10.
No, I get it. I think that's the majority. There's only a few that are expensive, which is Frost Valley and
Grade level.
Right,
and the
but
eighth grade.
that's,
those
it's
two.
It's
kind
the
of been
overnight. As soon as you're
underrated then.
overnight is when the cost goes up.
But I'd like to see other kids involved, if possible. I mean, if there's a way of fundraising, it would be good so that some of the kids won't feel left out.
Well, in the 8th grade trip, for example, I remember Dr. Colson said that they do have fundraising in mind, and he can report back to us on, you know, what steps they've made to
Right.
identify that. Do you feel like you've gotten enough guidance?
I'm really not that sure.
Okay.
I hate to say it.
All right, so let's try.
Because I guess what I'm looking at is you know, how little is not enough, right?
For a
How
trip.
little?
For a trip.
The attendance.
Yeah, and Tim, I'm sorry, you're right there, but the senior trip, last year, we had 50 kids go on,
Yeah.
okay? And I think the advisor had asked for during the week trip, and I was like, I had a little bit of a problem with it, and I pushed it off to the end of the week, so the kids weren't out of the school day because of that. This year, the board noticeably had some real conversation with regard to affordability of trips.
Yeah.
Okay? I would be foolish to come forward to you with a 50-kid trip that's over $500
Right.
after we just had that conversation. So I'm looking for a little guidance, you know. Is this something that we're working towards? is this something that, you know, you mentioned you'd be interested in knowing how the kids were involved in it and what we did to encourage.
Right, what's
So
the
I mean,
outreach?
so when you have those low numbers, is that what the board's looking for?
Well, I would look at what they get out of the trip, you know? So if it's something really, you know, really important, that they would learn a lot, and there's only 50 kids, sure. You know, I wouldn't go to the lighthouse with 50 kids or 25 kids. You know, I guess it would be what they get out of the trip.
You know, I guess, I get where you're going now, and I wasn't thinking that when we started the conversation, and it does make a lot of sense. And you want more kids going because you don't want kids to feel excluded because of economics, right?
Right.
So what makes that the way to do it, but in my opinion, what makes it harder is going to be how far in advance you can plan it to allow for fundraising. So if you're gonna plan a senior trip grade level, they've gotta start fundraising when they get to the building in ninth grade. But I'm also mindful of that because as a parent, you know, every day something comes home, we're selling chocolate, there's, you know, the holiday boutique, and we're kinda like, and I understand that's PTA and they're raising funds, but if we're gonna ask kids and families, you know, 3-4 years in advance, and we're gonna run into having to have some real strict accounting rules, because we're gonna be carrying money, you know, for an extended amount of time. We're gonna be carrying a balance for kids from ninth grade potentially till they're seniors. I don't even know if that's even legal. So there's a lot of things to consider, but to your point, you wanna do a grade level trip that costs a lot of money, and you wanna make sure everybody's included and nobody's excluded because of economics, then you really have to plan much further ahead and fundraise much sooner. Because if you're gonna plan a trip for May, and it's $500-600, and you're gonna start fundraising in September, October, you know, you're not gonna do it in September because school just started. You start in October, and before you know it, you're into the holidays. You're really not gonna, nobody's really gonna pick up and start fundraising until end of January, February. Now you left yourself a short amount of time, and that's a big burden to put on people, and I think we end up in the same spot, so.
And I think we do need to recognize that as kids get older and get through the grade levels, they're involved in more things, and less kids will go. It's impossible to get the whole grade level to go. I mean, let's be real. I mean, we had a goal of 275 for 8th grade, and I think there's 340, 330 kids in the class. I don't know, am I looking for a guideline? It's something to shoot for. And then to be able to share with you what we did to try to attain that. Again, we had some detailed discussion with regard to the matter, and I didn't want to come forward with it.
Well, do you mean sort of like a price not going above a certain amount?
You know what? It's all part of it. It's the price. It's how many. Is it tied to the curriculum? It's all of those things, right? And maybe the answer is that it sounds like we need a few subcommittees. We need a subcommittee to look at, you know, the events and activities on Long Island. We need a subcommittee at the elementary level to look at what we can do to improve opportunities for kids in field trips. And we need something at the second.
Well, that's a good point, because
Well,
we're
maybe
trying to.
elementary and secondary,
No, but-
that might be something that we would be tackling separately,
Yeah, I
because we
think
are
so.
looking at different,
They're-
although
they're
not that
different.
secondary couldn't do these small, and sometimes it becomes more meaningful, but that might be something within the committees, that you're looking at elementary and secondary as two separate units. Carly, why don't you think that people go on these trips at the high school?
Quali, you planning on going on this senior trip?
I would I think I would.
Where is it?
I would really
Where
have
is
a
it?
choice.
Williamsburg,
But
right?
I think
Williamsburg?
it has to
Williamsburg?
do with a lot of the times, if one friend says they're going, then that friend group will go. But if someone says no, then maybe they won't go. And sports, there's gonna be a lot of conflicts
Right.
regardless. It also could be the cost, because some people would say, well, I'd rather get in your computer than go on a vacation
Sure.
with your friends. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I do think that if there was a trip, it should be available for everyone, and those who are interested and want to do it, and if there's fundraising, then I mean, I don't see a problem with it, but I mean, I get that there's a lot that goes into it.
So then that's a great point. So it's available to everyone, and there's fundraising available, so anyone can go if they so choose.
I like those guidelines.
Best thing said.
No, but you did bring up a point where there's different objectives, right? How to improve elementary, how to expose middle school to more, and then when we're talking about overnight trips, but overnight trips in high school, like, I wasn't even thinking, I mean, when is the senior trip? Do we know the time of year?
They're actually proposing right after AP and right after sports, so.
So there's kind of like
Trying to look for
this
the,
gap of a couple days between seasons, I guess? Unless one of the teams makes the playoffs, or the run, I mean, like, there's, because you
After the
would,
spring season.
yeah, but, oh, it's after the spring season, because you would hate to see somebody who really wants to go, and then all of a sudden, they're the bench warmer on the basketball team, and, well, I gotta weigh a decision here, do I leave my team, or do I go on the trip, or vice versa, you're a player, or whatever.
Do we know what the trip is right now?
Williamsburg, right? Williamsburg?
Williamsburg and the Inner Harbor.
Great.
Good spot.
Do we know the price?
$504.
$4.
And is that 2 nights? 2 nights?
No, that's 2 nights? It's 2 nights, it's Friday and Saturday.
All right. Yeah, that's a high price.
Right.
I think I got more.
I think you did too. It may not be as much as you wanted,
No, but I think
maybe
it-
it's enough to like start to outline how to attack all of these issues.
I think you gave me a good start. Absolutely.
Okay,
No action.
so,
Moving on?
yes, please.
Okay, so the next item for discussion is legislation in Albany to mandate that all children receive the HPV vaccine regardless of parental consent. Specifically, there are 4 bills currently up for consideration. One provides for the immunization of all children born after January 1st, 2009 against the human papilloma virus. Another relates to mandatory influenza vaccines for persons attending daycare. Another permits any child who is at least 14 years of age to have administered to him or herself certain immunizations required or recommended by law without parental consent. And the fourth allows healthcare practitioners to administer all STD vaccines to anyone under age 18 without parental consent. I offer that, these items for the board's discussion.
I have some comments.
Okay, I think there's gonna be quite a bit, so shall we just go in order, or you're up first?
Yeah, I asked for this to be put on the agenda for a couple of reasons, and we did discuss it last night with the Legislative Committee and Nassau Suffolk School Board, although they chose not to take it up and think it's something that school boards should take up individually. I just want to state clearly that from my perspective, this board, I don't think should be taking any type of healthcare, decision. We shouldn't be saying you should get it, you shouldn't get it. I have concerns with these bills for a number of reasons, and how I believe they can potentially disrupt the operation of our school. Specifically, I'll talk about the HPV and influenza. I don't necessarily have an issue with the influenza law being proposed, for the simple fact that if a kid comes to school with the flu and they sneeze, my kid can get the flu. You now pose a health risk to those around you, okay? HPV is a bit different for me, and this is the one I have an issue with. Because, number one, you're mandating, you're taking parental consent out of the equation here. And I have a problem with that, because HPV is only transmitted through sex and hereditary. So if my kid is in class sitting next to a kid with the HPV virus, he's not going to get it if the kid sneezes or coughs. So I don't see what the health risk is for students in school. So I have a problem with them mandating it. And what we saw, and I know the protests were small in regards to the religious exemption going away for certain vaccinations, only 30% of parents choose to have their children vaccinated for HPV. That means that 63% of our student population can potentially be held out of school, which is going to disrupt our school day, considerably. In addition to the fact that the other bill that allows for a healthcare practitioner, that scares me more than anything, because a healthcare practitioner is a school nurse. or a school nurse is a healthcare practitioner. So, and this vaccination costs between $250 and $500. So I can envision down the line this becoming, you know, a student who, you know, doesn't have benefits or any place to get the vaccination. I know there's resources available, but I certainly don't want kids coming to school and our nursing staff being responsible for vaccinating a child without parental consent. So that's where my objections come into this. Now, there is not a whole lot of, from what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound like this is even gonna get out of committee, which we you know, I would hope it doesn't, especially in light of the bail reform and what they just went through with the religious exemptions. It's, you know, it's election season and it's politics and it probably won't get out. But I do believe that we should take a stand in at least how this will affect the operation of our school with some of the points I just made, without saying you should or shouldn't get the vaccination. That's a parent's right, so, in my opinion.
Anybody else want to comment on this?
My point of view is that, I mean, we shouldn't be deterring anyone from getting vaccinations. I do understand your point. Actually, when you had first sent the email, I was like, oh no. I saw
I get
against
it.
what you said, but over the last week, I have done a little bit of research on it. And I do agree, and I've talked to a lot of people about this because I hadn't really thought about it. It's different than getting your measles shot. It's different than getting all of these other vaccinations, which I do agree with the law. I think everyone should be getting vaccinated. I don't think religious exemption should play a factor when it's talking about public health. My personal opinion is that people should be getting this vaccination because, I mean, for women it can prevent cervical cancer. I think maybe if we educated the public a little bit more about what HPV is, more people would be taking the vaccination. But I don't know if we should be sending a letter right now if we do believe that it's not even going to get out of committee.
Well, and maybe it's something to watch. But if it furthers, I'm talking about a board resolution. I'm not just, I mean, and we saw things like this during the opt-out movement about protecting a parent's right to make choices on whether a student takes a test. I have a hard time supporting a resolution like that and now saying we're gonna take a parent's right to make a healthcare decision with their child. And maybe we just leave it alone and let what happens. My concern was how this is going to affect the operation of our school. And again, it's not our role or responsibility, in my opinion, to educate folks on whether or not they should have their kids vaccinated with HPV. That's between them and their doctor. And I don't think we should be involved in it. Because I haven't determined if my kids are going to get the vaccination or not. It's something that my wife and I will discuss, and I personally don't want the state involved in the conversation. So, but if a kid who's unvaccinated is sitting next to my child and sneezes, and I think that my kid could get gravely ill, and I have some I have someone in my home who has a chronic illness, so everybody has to be vaccinated with the flu. And if my child is around somebody who isn't vaccinated, they're in extreme danger. That's a healthcare crisis. I'm not really worried about my 9-year-olds contracting an STD right now. And until I know more about the vaccine, because the vaccine doesn't come without controversy. There are side effects, it's not perfect, like any vaccine isn't. So until I personally, as a parent, have taken the time to educate myself and consult with my child's doctor, I don't want the state making that decision. And while at the same time, I believe it is going to disrupt, but regardless of that, that's my personal view. I see this as disrupting the operation of our school. If 63% of our kids aren't vaccinated, we saw, what do we have, 40 kids who are the religious exemption? I mean, that caused a problem in a lot of school districts, although it was small for us. So, and this whiffs at, you know, unfunded mandate coming down the pipe as well. So maybe it's a little early. Some school districts in our area have taken up resolutions to say this is what our position is. William Floyd specifically did exactly what I thought. I'm waiting for their language to say, this is your decision. As it affects our school district, you know, this is our position. And that's something I think we should discuss. that's all.
In your role on the Nassau Suffolk
Mhm.
School Boards Association, do you think you can stay up to date enough to keep us informed?
Oh, sure, I mean,
Okay, so that we don't need to make a decision
No.
today, but I think you're asking for a reading about whether or not we want to say, yes, we want to be supportive of this proposed legislation.
I think if we're
And
just
I
to-
know that you're not in favor of it, but if you want to get a sense from us as to what our feeling about that would be, I'll tell you mine.
Yeah, no, and I don't know that it matters what anybody's personal feeling is for them. I just think we need to discuss whether or not this legislation poses a problem for how we run our school district.
That's what I was
And that's
getting.
what I'm getting at, and that's all.
what I'm getting
Yeah, I
at
got
as
you,
well.
sorry.
In my role solely as a board member, I don't think this is something that we need to take up. It's not a piece of legislation that I think we want to promote. And based upon what you're saying about it, it may not even get out of committee. It may be premature for us to even have to take a position about how we might oppose it if that's what we were gonna do. I don't think we need to make that decision tonight.
I don't think we need to make a decision tonight either. I think we need to start the conversation, but I will say, I never thought the bail reform bill in its current form would have been passed either, and it got snuck into the budget, and it's budget season. So, it's, like I said, it's just something we need to watch and make sure that we discuss. And again, it's not supporting or not supporting the vaccine itself, it's how it will impact, how this law will impact our operation in our nurse's office.
Is this type of stuff discussed in our health classes?
I don't know if this specific, STDs obviously are, yes. In terms of vaccinations, that I couldn't tell you. Certainly not this new legislation,
Right, okay.
at least not at this time.
But I think that the curriculum is supposed to include information about things like that. Am I mistaken? I
would-
think that a year and a half ago or so, there was something came down out of Albany about what the health classes ought to be including.
I'm sure
And
STDs they do.
So,
Oh, no, STDs.
I wouldn't
Definitely,
necessarily
definitely.
start touching, similar to what Chris just said, this really is a parent's right, especially when it comes to these vaccinations. I'll be open and honest, I do vaccinate my children for both of these. However, I know many parents that don't, and they choose not to get flu vaccinations, and I do believe that it is a parent's right. So to start having conversations in health class for or against the vaccinations, I think is a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Because it's, again, my child is a minor, I make that choice. And then, yes, these 3 and 4 right there, having without a parent's consent and having nurses have that, I take grave issue to that. So yes, I do agree with Chris in starting to have those conversations if this does come to fruition, where we stand as a district and putting it out to the parents to say that this is your parents, this is your right as a parent. So that portion of it, but no, I would definitely not start having discussions of immunizations in health class.
But I wasn't focused so
No,
much
I
on the
just- yeah.
immunization,
Yeah.
but the fact that there are different kinds of sexually transmitted
Mhm.
diseases, this is one. There's certain vaccines that are being developed that may or may not be helpful. But without weighing in on
Right.
anything other than the fact that this is something that parents may want to look into.
Right.
So-
And I wasn't saying that I
Right,
that the
yeah.
vaccine should be advocated for in health classes. I'm just saying the information that it exists.
No, I understand, I just didn't want it to be misinterpreted by anybody, because some people do take this extremely personal. I'm not one of those people, but I do know that there are a lot of people that do take, the vaccination of their children extremely personal, and they take it to heart, and they're sensitive about it.
there?
Keep an eye on it.
Yeah, that's Chris's job.
Sure.
Okay. The fourth and fifth items for discussion are two policies that need revision in connection with an agreement with the Suffolk County Police Department that the board discussed earlier this school year. That agreement would give Suffolk County Police Department access to our remote cameras under certain emergency situations. Two policies have been reviewed and revised by District Council and are both in final version and red line version for the board's review and second reading. The Strategic Planning Committee has also reviewed and approved these policies. Policy 7240 adds language indicating the determination as to whether there is an articulable and significant threat shall be made by the superintendent or designee to the end of the section entitled Health and Safety Emergency Exception. And Policy 5684 revises the policy by including the request for reviewing the camera surveillance system for a legally binding agreement. I offer these two policies for the board's review, second reading, and action.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve these two policies? A motion? Oh, Ms. Aruda?
I'm sorry.
Okay. A second? Mr. Puccini? Okay, any discussion or questions? All in favor of approving these two policies? All in favor? It's unanimous. Okay. Board consent agenda?
Yes, curriculum. Moving on to curriculum items. Administration recommends approval of curriculum items reflected in schedules G1 through G5. And I'll point out that G5 is Frost Valley trip, the 7th grade trip.
Jack,
Elwood Middle School.
can you just explain the payment, how the payment is worked out
Can,
on,
we need, let's
Motion.
pull
Yeah,
out,
Motion.
yeah, we're gonna need a motion, but maybe pull out 5, do the
Okay.
motion for
Okay.
1 through 4.
Did
G1
you
through
put it on the table?
Did I put
Yeah.
Frost Valley on the table?
No, did you make a motion?
No.
No,
There's
I
no
did
motion
not.
on
I
this
did
yet.
not. No,
Motion.
no motion, yeah, that's fine.
Administration recommends approval of curriculum items reflected in Schedule G1 through G4.
Now we need a motion to approve the items G1 through G4. Mr. Nix, second by Mr. Trent. Questions or discussion? Mr. Trent, you had a question?
no,
Oh, I'm
This
sorry,
is
no,
the
I'm
first
sorry, my bad. This is G1 through G4. Is there any discussion about those items? No, okay. All in favor of G1 through G4? It's unanimous. Okay, and now you need a motion to,
And now administration recommends approval of curriculum item G5.
okay. Is there a motion for G5? Mr. Nix, second, Mr. Trent. Now your questions or discussion.
how do parents make the payments for this trip?
For the Frost Valley, that does go through the school. That is not it's not an outside vendor as the 8th grade trip.
Okay.
Only one payment, though. Well, 2 payments, one to the bus and one to Frost Valley, right?
So there's no option to make like smaller payments?
Oh, no, they can pay along, but I'm sorry, I thought you meant where is it going? It goes to the school deposit an account, and.
It's usually like
you
3
can-
payments, right?
You can make it in several payments. It's not one big
I
payment.
think it's recommended at 3, but I think if there's an accommodation needed, they do.
Gotcha.
All right. We had the motion and it was seconded. If there's no further discussion, all in favor? It's unanimous again. And now board consent personnel.
Administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in Schedules H1 through H10.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Puccini, you made the motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Trent. Any discussion, questions? All in favor? It's unanimously consented to.
And I would like to announce and congratulate a few individuals. The board just approved my tenure recommendation for Ms. Kerry Carson, who is the Director of Special Education and Student Support Services, effective February 11th, as well as Ms. Lori O'Hara as Assistant Director of Special Education and Student Support Services, also effective February 11th. So congratulations to those two individuals. I don't see them in the audience, but they could very well be watching at home. While watching at home, congratulations to each of you. And I would also like to announce that the board accepted our recommendation to approve a new network and systems administrator, Daniel Maresca, who will be joining us on February 3rd. That's our Mr. Warmgreen replacement.
Okay. Is Mr. Maresca a current employee?
No, he is not.
Where is he from?
I'm sorry, Mr. Briggs, can you help me with that? Where is he right now?
He works for a very large bread distributor. He does all their technology and systems.
So private,
Yes.
private company?
Correct.
Okay.
So we're expecting treats.
I hope so.
And what does he distribute?
No, he does the IT for the
He does all
company.
the technology for a very large bread distributor.
Bread,
Yes.
okay.
Bakery.
Tell
Bakery,
him to bring some brownies.
okay.
And moving on to
To-
business, the administration recommends approval of business items reflected in schedules I-1 through I-11.
Do we have a motion to accept or a motion to approve I-1 through I-11? Mr. Nix, Mr. Trent second. Discussion or questions? Ms. Aruda?
Just questions on I-2 for the bid for grounds. If you could just clarify the storm cleanup portion, two of the bids, there's a number.
Yeah,
Crane
those
does not
numbers
give
aren't
us.
included.
They're not included, but Crane gives us per man hour. So how does that budget in with us if we have an exceptional season, exceptionally high snow season compared to a low snow season?
Well, that's not snow, right?
So that would depend on down limbs and et
That's-
cetera.
okay, okay.
We do our own snow removal.
Okay, and that's what I needed the
Yeah.
clarification on. And are our outside contractors, do they do our fields, like line our fields, or is that our guys as
No,
well?
our folks line the fields,
Okay.
Crane cuts the field.
Customers, okay, just clarification on that. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. So we need a motion.
No,
we already did that?
Yeah.
Oh, now we're ready to vote. All in favor of approving items I-1 through 11? All in favor? It's unanimous. And now, back to public commentary for non-agenda items. And we have one yellow slip, Kathleen Spence. And I think you'll remember what I said about 3 minutes
I
and
remember.
issue only, not individuals.
Okay. Good evening. I am here tonight as a parent of an involved child in the 6th grade at Belport Middle School. It has come to my attention that all children from 4th grade to 12th grade have opportunities to attend after-school extra help at their home school except for 6th grade students due to contractual concerns. I would like to bring this to the board's attention and officially request that the board ask the administration to allot funding to pay for a certified teacher to offer extra help after school to 6th grade students. Currently, Belport Middle School has a similar after-school program known as the Student Success Center. The goal of this program is help academics for 7th and 8th grade athletes to keep them academically eligible to play sports. Let's compare two different types of Belport Middle School students and see if there is equal opportunity for extra help for each type of student. Student A will be a 6th grade student looking to seek help for their Singapore math type curriculum in their math and focus. To keep the variables similar, student B will be a 7th grade student who is involved in various sports who also needs help with their math curriculum. The 7th grade student has various school-provided avenues to seek extra help outside the classroom. 1, the student can go to his or her math teacher's assigned extra help per the Bellport Middle School website. 2, go to the Student Success Center, provided by a certified Bellport Middle School math and ELA teacher. Or 3, take the school-provided bus to the Engagement Center on Thursdays. The 6th grade student only is provided option for extra help from a Bellport Middle School certified teacher is to take a school-provided bus to the Engagement Center 1 day a week on Thursdays. As you can see, the school provides extra help is not evenly distributed and hinders the 6th grade child from reaching academic success. I have asked administration where the 6th grade students can find school-provided extra help outside the classroom. I was told, 1, that due to block scheduling, 6th grade students have extra class time averaging 16 minutes per day, according to my sources, totaling about 80 minutes per week. I know 2 of the board members are classroom teachers on here as myself and can attest that adequate extra help time cannot be provided with a full class of 30 students in this time period. 2, I was advised that the state-funded Empire program would provide extra help for Bellport Middle School students. I reached out to the Empire program to learn that homework time, as they call it, is not being taught by certified teachers. It is being taught by college students. This is still a wonderful program, and by no means am I belittling the effectiveness of the Empire program. The fact remains that 6th grade students have no school-provided extra help by a certified teachers, unlike their 7th and 8th grade counterparts. As a matter of fact, all students in grades 4 through 12, with the exception of 6th grade, is provided extra help at their home school. I implore you to encourage administration to establish building-provided extra help for 6th grade students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you get that? I'm gonna get the, Ms. Spence, can you leave me that? Would you
I
write?
can email it to you.
Okay.
Email?
You
I'll
have my-
email to all of you.
You, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I have my notes on here.
Board members, anything else? Closing remarks by any of you? Okay, Carly.
Thank you to Donors Choose and those individuals making donations in support of classroom projects at Frank P. Long Intermediate School in Ms. Clavin's and Ms. McNaughton's classes.
Thanks
all
for
I have.
letting us know that. Mr. Parker? Mr. Trent? No, just to clarify, the Friday evening event at the high school has been postponed.
To March.
Okay, thank you for that. A motion to adjourn, I think Mr. Nix wants to make it.
Sure.
Okay. And second, who wants to second? Mr. Parker, all in favor, unanimously adjourned.